Tony?
Ginny Pin.
Not confused.
We don't stop playing because we get old.
And afterward, many are strong at the broken place. The world breaks everyone.
What if the monster in your closet isn't a demon or a ghost, but your roommate? Today we're diving into The Rule of Jenny Penn, a film that proves the scariest thing about aging might not be dying. The plot. The movie opens with Judge Stephen Mortensen presiding over a trial. As we join him, his focus is wavering, not toward justice, but toward an insect trespassing on his bench. With the detached precision of a man who'd rather play executioner than arbiter today, he crushes the bug in an act of quiet foreshadowing. The prosecution snaps him back to the case at hand, where the judge swiftly eviscerates the accused. He dismisses the defense's attempts to frame the man as remorseful by pointing out just how many times the defendant has committed the same awful crime. But his scorn isn't reserved for the defendant alone. He turns his disgust towards the victim's mother, chastising her for failing to protect her children from a repeat offending deviant. In the absence of lions, hyenas will rule, the judge declares. The people he's admonishing probably aren't impressed by the poetic justice. But for us, in the audience, that line will carry a lot of dramatic weight later on. That's when the real drama begins. If you're familiar with the signs of a stroke, the slurred speech, the facial drooping, the sudden urge to argue with God himself, you'll realize the judge's futile struggle to power through his own neurological meltdown. Spoiler alert, he doesn't win this fight. The first act comes to a close as the judge slumps forward and the cold machinery of the law grinds to a temporary halt. Justice may be blind, as they say, but apparently it's also prone to aneurysms. Act 1 is a masterclass in dread as exposition. Killing that insect wasn't just foreshadowing, it's poetic irony. The judge crushes the life out of the insect and the guilty party in his courtroom, just seconds before his own biology crushes the life out of him. And that hyena comment? That'll serve as our eventual Chekhov's gun. More on that later. The aftermath of the stroke is etched onto Judge Martensen's face, quite literally, as his right eye droops with the telltale sag of neurological betrayal. It's a highly effective, subtle, practical effect that whispers, "Congratulations, Your Honor, you're now serving society as a statistic," or a cautionary tale. The judge sits fuming, reluctantly deposited at the Royal Pine Mews Care Home, a name that promises pastoral serenity but ultimately delivers a kind of bureaucratic purgatory instead. The fresh air offers him no reprieve. It does, however, introduce him to Howie, a fellow resident who finds some cosmic humor in the lurking cat nearby, known among the home's residents as a harbinger of death, Pluto. Howie also gets a dark kick out of the fact that the judge ended up in this subpar facility, which was the only one available with vacancies. But the shared laughter is abruptly incinerated when Howie, after taking the first sip from his flask, spits the contents out and immediately ignites, like a human tiki torch. The judge watches, paralyzed by both his stroke and the universe's cruel punchline. Apparently, even here at a rest home, the universe prefers slapstick over dignity. Watching Howie's face in slow motion tells us this event was darker than it seemed. I suggest that whatever touched his lips wasn't what he originally poured into that flask. That night, the judge's insomnia grants him a front-row seat to Dave Carley's silent audition for the Most Chilling Glare in a Nursing Home award. Dave marks the judge with a long, penetrating stare before abruptly shutting his door, another quiet act of foreshadowing. By daylight, the judge stews among residents he would have dismissed as beneath him just a week ago. That New Zealand Order of Merit he once held? It's hardly a match for the new order of shared pudding cups he now contends with. But if you read his resentment as snobbery, I suggest slipping into his slippers for just a moment. What you're witnessing is raw terror. A man who was healthy, capable, and fiercely independent just days ago is now unable to trust his own brain. The judge notices Dave sitting at the back of the room, watching as if overseeing things. He's clutching a doll, common therapy for dementia patients. But then the judge's new reality bends even further toward horror. A fellow resident babbles about her family's imminent return from holiday, blissfully unaware they abandoned her there years ago. The film plunges us into the ultimate violation of privacy, the judge's sponge bath. After abrasively asserting that he's far stronger than the nurse gives him credit for, the judge is left alone for 30 seconds while she fetches a towel. In that moment, he learns the hard way that his body has become a traitorous stranger, loyal now only to his faulty brain. The wide camera angle lingers, unflinching. The judge is hidden, leaving us to imagine what's happening in that tub. Jeffrey Rush's performance in this scene is a silent, powerful scream against the inevitable indignities of aging. Indignities we'll all eventually face. Dave, ever the method actor, continues his performance as a confused dementia patient. His Oscar-worthy mumbles and vacant stares lull the staff into complacency. And if you think this setup is unrealistic, I'd suggest you either don't read the news or you've never stepped foot in one of these underfunded care homes. I'd also suggest Dave possesses a rather unique ability in this regard. I'll elaborate on that shortly. Dave's true cruelty reveals itself in the middle of the night when he douses the judge with a portable urinal filled with the judge's own emissions. As a side note, I, for one, still can't decide if it was better that it was his own. Never mind. The judge's animated complaints fall on callous ears, highlighting another horrific reality in facilities like this. The staff is overworked, underappreciated, exhausted, and underpaid. They dismiss the incident as an accident. After all, stroke patients are unreliable by default, and to them, the judge is just another angry old man struggling to adjust. With pajamas soaked in piss, the judge is seen as a problem, and Dave's just a harmless, daft old man with a doll. Except he isn't. With the lines clearly drawn in the faded, worn carpet, the judge, now fully aware of Dave's predatory nature, declares war. The battle begins with a 4-letter word, starting with a C, and a perfectly placed pudding projectile. A culinary coup de grace. It's a bit absurd and undoubtedly cathartic, if you're the judge. The pudding assault causes the judge's roommate Tony to gasp, because Tony knows exactly what the cost of defiance is, and later that same night he pays the price. But Dave's apparent brutality shatters the nostalgia. He forces the residents back into the present moment, with all of its real-life problems, pain, and indignities. The dancing itself holds deep significance. In care homes, dancing is practically a ritual. It's one of the last communal acts of self-determination and vitality these people have left, and that's exactly why I think this film is a masterpiece. Dave isn't just knocking them over, he's erasing their agency. He's reducing them to obstacles, objects in his way. These are people society already treats as invisible, and this scene weaponizes that invisibility. By clearing the dance floor, Dave mirrors the way the world discards the elderly. As a metaphor, his grin isn't just malicious, it's the smirk of entropy, as some smarter folks might say. He doesn't hate these people, he's reveling in being the inevitable. The song begs for just a little more time, but as we'll learn later, Dave has been watching these people his entire life, and he knows time always wins. When he scatters the dancers, it's not just violence, it's a demonstration, a reminder. Their joy has always been borrowed, and time always comes to take it back. Eventually. Also, we find out at the end of the scene that Dave has asthma, which is nowhere near as heavy but equally important. We go to the next scene, where the judge finds Tony cowering in an old laundry room and chastises him for being a coward, for not standing up to Dave the way the judge wants him to. But Tony quietly pushes back, telling him, "You don't have everyone pegged the way you think you do." Not surprisingly, Dave escalates things. He begins stealing residents' personal belongings to frame the judge. Then the judge stumbles upon photographic evidence, proof of Dave's chilling history, a 50-year reign of terror. It's as if Dave has always been here. Then the judge drifts away, and when he comes to again, he's seated across from Dave, of all people. With a nearly surgical level of cruelty, Dave lets him know he's been watching him drift in and out ever since he arrived. He points toward Sean Dunn, who is sitting silently in the corner, and makes it clear, "That's where you're heading." He says it with such cold confidence, it sends the judge spiraling. One moment, the judge is confronting Dave. The next, he's staring at a cognitive test, gaping at his own attempt to draw a clock, which now resembles something out of a primitive Salvador Dali painting. The judge is no longer reliable. His mind is fraying so much that his rehab officer offers him his own doll. It's no coincidence that every interaction with Dave is pushing the judge deeper into delirium. The battle of wills continues as Dave ruthlessly abuses Tony right in front of the judge. When the judge asks Tony why he doesn't involve his family, Tony admits he doesn't want his grandchildren to think he's anything less than the hero they believe he is. Then, during a television program about African wildlife, Dave's laughter morphs into the unmistakable cackle of a hyena. It's a chilling callback to the judge's sentiment in the opening scene, reminding both of us and him of the line he once uttered, "In the absence of lions, hyenas will rule." And in his deteriorating state, the judge decides to get proactive. He sneaks into Dave's empty room. The next time Dave tries to assert his dominance, he finds all his asthma inhalers mysteriously empty. Dave collapses to the floor, wheezing and crumpled, mirroring the limp, lifeless puppet he carries around. Under the impression that Dave is no longer a threat, the judge and Tony sit peacefully watching a nature documentary. It's about the unlikely partnership between moray eels and cleaner shrimp. The message isn't subtle. Even the most improbable alliances can help one another survive. But the judge blinks out again. When he comes to, he's at the mercy of a now fully recovered and fully unhinged Dave. Dave begins stripping a blind, defenseless woman naked, forcing the judge to watch. But somehow, at his lowest point, physically and mentally, the judge finds a surge of strength. With one shaky but determined strike, he sends Dave crashing to the floor. Justice delayed and partially delirious is still justice, for now at least. The judge is moved to isolation in a medical room, but Dave sneaks in. He delivers a chilling reveal. He remembers the judge from an award ceremony decades ago. He tells him, "You wore your honor like a crown back then." Then he smirks. "Look at you now." It's less an expose and more of a eulogy for the judge's former self. And the judge, he seems to accept it. Or maybe he's just pretending. The second act doesn't close with explosive violence, but with the promise of it. The judge's defiance has ignited something deep within Tony. The ex-rugby star, trembling but resolute, channels his ancient Maori ancestors. He attempts a haka, New Zealand's traditional war cry, but it dies in his throat when his legs betray him. Still, his effort is no less heroic for its brevity. Tony has declared his intention, and Dave knows it. Before the act ends, we're treated to a brief cameo from Nathaniel Lee's The Matrix, underscoring the cultural weight of the moment. Maori pride far outlasts Tony's physical strength. The second act dance floor scene, it's not just the movie's thesis, it's the film's heart. Because Dave isn't just killing people, he's killing the moments they have left. Tony's haka isn't just a war cry against Dave, it's a war cry against death itself. And the excruciating irony? His body, the very thing he's trying to preserve, chokes that cry off. If Act 1 asked the question, "Who rules when lions leave?" Act 2 answers, "Hyenas." And they're laughing at you. In the final act, in a well-deserved act of vengeance, Tony's public haka lures David into searching for him later that night. The judge and Tony ambush Dave in the laundry room, but instead of explosive Hollywood action, we get something more grounded. A realistic rugby tackle from a broken old star, followed by quiet retribution, delivered far away from the delicate eyes of the other residents. The moray eel joins arms with the cleaner shrimp. The unlikely pair triumphs, together. The story closes with all three arcs perfectly resolved. Tony, once too gentle and timid to fight, finally finds his courage. The judge, once too proud to connect with others, expresses genuine gratitude to his new friend, and Dave, presumably just another body wheeled out of a care home, learns the hard way a hyena will always die alone. Or does he? The final scene shows the infamous cat, the home's feline harbinger of death, choosing the judge as his next casualty. But we never actually find out what happened to Dave. Act 3 is about vengeance and resolution, but not with the usual fanfare or fireworks. Instead, everything settles quietly, like dust after a storm has passed. The judge and Tony's arcs don't climax in the same Luke Skywalker finale, they just return softly to stillness. And if you've been wondering this whole time why Dave was so cruel, why the entire home feared him, how he kept getting away with everything over and over, let me clarify something. This isn't a story about a psychopath in a care home. It's about the first psychopath, the one that's been lurking in hospitals and hospices since the dawn of time. Allow me to introduce you to the world's most mundane villain, the only one you can never stop, who always gets away with it. Meet Dave, the Angel of Death. Dave isn't just a monster, he's the literal Grim Reaper. Think about it, he's always there, on the fringe. with his eye on everyone. He's not just a man in those photographs, he's a fixture, a presence. Death doesn't retire, it just changes uniforms. Dave Creeley doesn't murder you, he curates your decay. He agitates and exacerbates your condition, nudging you ever so gently toward the inevitable. The judge's frustration with Dave accelerated his decline. Royal Pine Mews isn't Dave's residence, it's his feeding ground. Tony has been around Dave longer, closer to death longer, and that's why he's more terrified of it. The judge has only just arrived. He still clings to the fantasy that he'll go home once he gets his legs working again. But by wiping Tony's tears at the end, the judge finally understands that he never really had a chance. As for Dave's hyena laugh, it's not just animalistic, it's metaphorical. Hyenas aren't just scavengers, they're opportunists. They feast on the weak. They wait. They know death always comes. Dave's actions are dismissed again and again by the staff because death is normalized in places like this. So are dementia, strokes, and accidents. It's all just more paperwork, but dying? That's the one thing you can't report to HR. Cinematography and sound design. The film looks like Ari Aster, and Mike Flanagan had a baby and raised it on antidepressants and humidifiers. Gloomy, precise, and beautifully claustrophobic. Every frame drips with dread. The color palette is muted but never dull. Think funeral home chic, with just enough warmth to remind you that this place once had life. Sound design is surgical. The muffled cries, the mechanical hum of medical devices, and the distant laughter echoing in the halls all combine to create a symphony of slow deterioration, and when that cat meows, it might as well be a church bell tolling. Acting and behavior. John Lithgow absolutely devours this role like he's making up for years of sitcom purgatory. His Dave is a masterclass in controlled madness, weaponizing fragility like a psychological sledgehammer. There's a moment where he laughs like a hyena during an animal documentary, and it's more chilling than any jump scare. Jeffrey Rush delivers a performance that's equal parts heartbreak and horror. His transformation from stoic judge to crumbling man is painfully believable. The way he struggles to draw a clock is a better depiction of cognitive decline than most entire movies. George Henry as Tony grounds the whole film. His haka attempt? That scene alone could earn him an Oscar. He brings such quiet dignity and pain to the role that you'll want to stand up and cheer, even as your soul deflates. Fear factor. My fear factor score is 6.7. I can't shake John Lithgow's demonic presence in the movie as he terrorizes the old folks in the retirement home and how nobody believes the victims because they're, well, old. The puppet baby, Jenny Penn, is a creepy and tiny extra that adds the perfect amount of creepy in an already psychotic story. There are no ghosts or demons in this movie, but the truth of being old someday and not knowing if it's reality or just your dementia that's terrorizing you adds an element we've never seen in films before. As a closing thought, if you're resting easy on the idea that the elected and unelected officials responsible for sorting out this kind of thing on our behalf would never let something like this happen to you because your care home is going to be lovely, just take a good look at how the same people are treating us right now. Don't tell me this isn't a horror movie. Until next time, be sure to hit that like button, comment, share, and subscribe, and remember, in the absence of lions, hyenas rule.